I'm Dylan Ratigan. I've interviewed nearly every CEO and most world leaders during the past 25 years. And now on Bootstrapping, I'm turning my attention to the new CEOs and the irrepressible entrepreneurs leading the next generation of innovation in the world. Welcome back to tastylive. I am Dylan Ratigan. Time for some more bootstrapping. My guest right now, Suman Kanuganti, his company personal.ai. And it's a pleasure to have you here. I've read the background, Suman, and I know you're raising money with Republic, or have been in the past. If I understand correctly, you're creating an AI representation, a body double, if you will, an intellectual or mental body double as an AI. So I can get a second Dylan, or a second anybody. And I find that alarming and inspiring and curiosity provoking. And so I'm looking forward to having this discussion with you. I guess let's start with, what exactly is the product? What when you talk about what are you doing? What is the result? What's going on here?
Yeah, it's nice to being on the show, Dylan. I mean, you said it, right? It is a representation of you, or the body of the knowledge that you possess. For us, a personal AI is essentially like a model that is grounded in your facts, in your opinions, in your perspectives. And it has the intelligence to think like you, right? We have seen many, assistants where you ask a question and get back a response that could be more general. If you think about Alexa AI, for example, you ask a question and you get a response back, or a ChatGPT, you ask a question and you get a response back, and you can have a conversation, meaningful conversations with it. Now imagine, instead of Alexa AI, Dylan AI, and the same kind of experiences, same kind of conversations.
So my question is, how is that done? Because I was thinking about it just in regard to myself. I'm like, how would I do this? And I would have to be a really easy one. You could do me in 1 minute, because you could just take my book, run it through if you could assume that I'm my book, right, without taking any other vectors, and immediately stand something up. But let's assume most people don't have a book that you can just feed in and create an identity based on that. What's the surveillance? What's the harvesting of information? Is it an interview? How do you train the AI to become?
Okay, yeah, that's great. So now let's get to the how part of it, right? So what we have developed over the past 4 years, Dylan, is something called a personal language model, right? On the contrary to large language model, which is, lots and lots of Internet of information in a model, we've developed a micro, or a small, or we actually refer to as a personal language model, which is grounded in your data. Now, what is the data? Well, any of the authored data that you may have historically written by you, right? So that would be anywhere from all your Gmail, or all your email, all your text messages, or even your books that you have authored that you mentioned. Maybe there are some documents.
So you're saying you could unleash the AI basically to scrape my Google Drive, all of my email
accounts, yeah.
All of the available, every image that's ever been whatever, you're saying everybody at the end of the day has an email that can be
right. So yep, exactly, right. So we refer to it as a memory, or a memory stack. So the most interesting thing about these models is every model has a memory, and that memory is unique to that individual. And that model has an identity of that individual. The model has the ownership of that individual, right? So you have full control about what this model is made of, and what is the model, like what kind of action.
So I could even create a fantasy version of myself, like
sure.
All the things that I wish I was.
People actually do that more often.
Right? I could do an angel and a devil. I could do bad Dylan.
Bad Dylan. So speaking of bad Dylan, good Dylan, and different personalities that we have, the concept also extends beyond a model into something called personas, right? Like, for example, how we perceive and how we talk, like, for example, on this Zoom itself is likely different from how our personality is, with friends, or like my Twitter personality, or, when we are going and talking to our team, that's probably a different personality. But every personality also has some certain knowledge or certain memory associated with it, right? And that is captured in the personal language model as something called a persona, right? So you can define these individual personas of Dylan that has different memory, different knowledge, but different personality as well, and they all roll up into your primary identity.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying that the AI will do a version of angry Dylan, happy Dylan, frustrated Dylan, excited Dylan, and then integrate. How does it? You're saying it'll harvest that through from your Instagram videos, like whatever it can get its hands on that
Yeah.
expresses.
Yeah, the structure and the expression is completely in the control of the individual, right? For example, like, to your
If
point,
I say to
I
it,
have,
listen, scrape my Instagram, that will be a
sure,
source.
it could scrape your Instagram, and that could be a persona that you could define. And you could also define something called a directive on how you would want to behave with that memory on Instagram. Maybe more humorous or more casual, right?
What if I wanted to personify an inanimate object like a Ferrari?
Mm.
And I treat my car like it's a person. I love this car. It's my
Yeah,
I don't
bring it to life. Yeah.
can I create an artificial personality not based on Dylan, but based on my fantasy of what I think this Ferrari's personality would be if it was a person, and
And you
then
can give
bring
the
the
memory
car
as
to
well.
life, and then ask the car like, "What do you want for dinner, Ferrari?"
Yep.
It's kind of, I guess it's a parlor trick, but I'm
Yeah.
assuming you could assign this identity to anything, a person or your microphone.
Yeah, sure. And then, some of the gamers are actually, creating NPCs and giving a personality, and that NPC moves from one game to other game as well, right?
Yeah.
Um, so the applications extends beyond the imagination. Like for myself personally, I have a persona that says contrarian, right? Meaning using my memory, I want to have contrarian thoughts, to the questions or to the input communications that is happening. I also have a dad persona, like all the memories that I have with my child, my, little one actually talks to my dad AI, right? Uh, yeah, so that's how it's pretty much
Okay.
like you're
Okay. So
taking the
we got a
human.
handle on the
Yeah,
product. Okay, we got it.
there you
We
go.
got it. So
There you
then
go.
how, like, is this, could everybody do this right now? I mean, is this deployed, implemented, available? Is this done, or is this in
Yeah,
development? Why are you raising money? Like, how real is this?
it's as real as you could get. You can
I
go
could
to
do it today.
s.personal.ai,
I
and you
could
can
go to
actually talk to my AI.
person.ai and log on today and create a Dylan.
Right. So anybody can, create their own models. We have a personal subscription or a premium subscription where people can go learn how to train, go through our webinars, and then actually build their own, right?
And
It's
how much
more
are your subscription? The subscription basically just keeps the AI alive indefinitely
correct. Correct. So that's like $400 per year, right?
for a year.
Per
400
year,
bucks a year per personality.
per person.
So if I created a football team, I could spend some money.
Yeah,
I'd
totally.
have right up
Totally.
to 400 bucks a personality.
Yeah.
Sorry, you were
So
trying to
that's
say something.
Yeah, so the self-service is more tailored for, students, freelancers, educators, like who are basically in the learning process and they want
And what
to
is
learn.
this?
That's basically anybody can go on the platform and subscribe to it and, start training their model.
But and that's also 400?
Yeah, that is the 400 I was talking
That
about.
is the 400. Okay.
Yeah, but we do, essentially train the models. Right now, where we are seeing majority of the traction is amongst the group of what we call them domain experts, where reputation is really important, where accuracy is mission critical, where the IP is really critical, and there is a supply and demand problem. In other words, there is an individual and that
An expert attorney on process engineering for oil
sure,
fields in Louisiana, and
but they
everybody
cannot keep
wants them
up.
at the rig.
Yep,
And
they
you can't
cannot
get
keep.
the guy to every oil rig. You can't
Yeah,
do it.
now multiply that with 10, right? Because now all of a sudden that expertise is multiplied with 10, and all the people, all the clients, all the customers, all the friends and family at the company, like depending on what the use case is.
So an expert could create consultant AI that's a replication of their, and then rent that out to as a commercial event.
Yep, that's exactly our business model, and that's what is happening right now in the market.
Wow. And which domains are particular? Is there any particular domain that's the early adopter in terms of
Yes.
running consulting on this?
Yeah, so we are looking at licensed and certified professionals, so between attorneys, doctors, coaches, and therapists. That's where we are seeing majority of the,
Coaches, therapists, lawyers, and doctors.
yeah.
Yeah, makes sense, right? I would also wonder about aviation or aerospace design, oil field stuff, oil
Yeah,
field.
aerospace, I believe, will be unlocked when we have multimodal nature of it, because the complexity involved in the aerospace also requires a lot of recalling the visual elements of, your mind, right?
Okay. Okay.
It's almost like you getting up and drawing on the whiteboard, right?
Okay. All right. Let's
Yeah,
keep
yeah.
going. I got it. Let's continue. So now what's to stop whoever, any human being, from going to personal.ai and signing up to do a personality, $400, and saying, I want to create a personal AI personality model based on Tom Sosnoff, who owns Tasty. And I'm not going to ask Tom. I'm just going to pay you $400, and I'm going to send the AI to scrape the bajillions of hours of Tom Sosnoff talking on Tasty Live. So there's a public source material forever on this guy because he's on TV 5 hours a day for 10 years every day. And all of a sudden, I've got personal Tom. And now I start renting Tom out to do options trading events.
Okay, so there are two things. Okay.
You know what I'm saying? All of a sudden, Tom's got a problem.
Yeah, so here, if Tom's got a problem, Tom's already has a problem. Because you know why? That public data that is available already on Tom is already indexed in the large language model. You don't need a personal language model to replicate an
No, but it
identity.
hasn't been reduced and monetized because Tom is not doing large. Tom is, or I don't want to pick on Tom. It could be Dylan. They could go to my book, whatever. You know,
continue. Yeah. So
delusion. But my point is, delusion is what is it? Delusion is the solution to pollution. So large language, I don't care.
Yeah, sure. What language you don't care?
You're not talking about large. You're telling me personal language is different. Anyway, continue.
Yeah, and the reason is this is the moment where you have to take control of the identity for yourself, right? So in other words,
well, again, you're threatening me. You're saying either I do.
Okay, no. Hear me out. So it all comes down to the accountability, right? So if it is Dylan, like Suman Kanaganti, for example, if I am creating Dylan's AI without your permission, without your consent, right?
On a Dylan scrape.
The company makes that ownership of the data and the memory of the person who is creating the AI. So in other words, you are accountable for it, and you are also likely infringing on a lot of IP.
You create liability. So Tom would sue if it was a non-Tom.
Totally, right?
If somebody owned a non-Tom or a non-Dylan or a non-Suman or whoever and was monetizing it somewhere, that would be rapidly stopped in a Delaware.
So it's technically illegal. Now, you don't care about large language models or personal language models. That's great, but that is the issue that exists right now, because large language models scrapes the internet. So anybody can actually scrape the internet, attach an identity, true or not, and then do that. What we are offering is a solution. Is like, look, people, come forward. You can be the authentic, true identity, and where the truth of what you are representing your identity, you can control. That is your personal language model. So there is a choice now to combat this idea of the issue that we are facing. That's how I look at it.
No, I mean, I understand that. And I can see, I'm just thinking of friends of mine who are either physicians or attorneys who would love this, I would imagine, just because they're,
it's all private.
Once you're charging $5,000 an hour because you're some expert on something, you're kind of top maxed out there,
Yeah.
So I mean, this is not for you to resolve or any of us. I mean, but I assume this is what all the big meetings are about. So I think about this personal AI, the sort of replication of a personal biography into some dynamic AI. Or I also think there's the idea of these autonomous agents, the ability to instruct AI to figure out how to accomplish a complex task.
Right. So it's a good point. The agents are doing tasks, right? But at the end of the day, they are taskers. So in other words, taskers need a body of intelligence, right? Right now, there is a whole bunch of autonomous agents out there that uses, quote unquote, general knowledge as the intelligence. What personal AI is about, an identity, there is a memory, there is a model, there is an API, and there are agents. So in other words, you will have an agent that represents and that is works solely on one motivation, which is to serve the individual. Right? When you have an agent of a big platform or a big service, those agents' purpose is one thing, to serve the platform. So it's not too far out to imagine where.
Okay. So let's. So I want to go, leave the ethical. We're not going to solve that today. Let's stay. So we're on Tasty Live. So I have a trading question for you.
Go for
So
it.
imagine I'm Chris Vecchio, who's a
Hmm.
trader who works at Tasty,
Hmm.
and imagine Chris is like, I want to train a personal AI of Chris Vecchio's trading analysis, opinion, sentiment, and decisions, and all those things.
Hmm.
And then when I, Chris Vecchio, have an opinion based on talking to me, Dylan, or Tom, or Ilya, or whoever, in whatever he's reading, whatever chart he's got going, all these things, I also want to ask personal AI Chris Vecchio what he thinks about this trade.
Hmm. That's a real use because it happens
Or
every
could
day.
I say, okay, forget that. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't want to debate against myself. I think Chris Vecchio is the world's greatest stock picker, or pick whoever you're, up the, the biggest hedge fund manager in the world in Greenwich, Connecticut is whoever, Ray Dalio or Paul Tudor
Hmm.
Jones or whoever. And they've all got all these books and all this comment, and they're always writing commentary and saying things that no one's reading. And so but if you made an AI read it, then you could say, well, ask, personal AI Paul Tudor Jones what he would do.
Yep.
Could you do that?
Yep. I mean, you are basically touching on the crux of what personal AI is all about, which is this core idea of the trust that you place in particular identity or person's knowledge. Um, and my genesis for this company is my desire to emotionally as well as intellectually connect with or talk to my co-founder of my previous company. He created like 27 different companies. He passed away because of pancreatic cancer. And I had this huge poster in my office that says, "What would Larry do?" for like 3 years or so. Right?
Okay. He was like your sort of like North Star for your
It was
decision,
not, he was my North Star, like for strategy, for negotiation,
everything,
for like dealing with issues, like
culture,
everything. Right?
cadence, everything.
Yeah. So there is like trust that establishes, right? So how can you elevate that trust? Right? It's not about like, oh, okay, one super awesome AI that everybody should rely on about the finance. Like, no. For some people, it's Ray. For some other people, it's Larry. What would Larry do? Is the core.
Everybody's got a different North Star, and everybody has a different demand for expertise that may be inaccessible.
Yep. And that's why it's like a small model with small groups, trusted groups, not
If I'm
a
Paul
huge.
Tudor Jones, like if I go, I give you $400, go to your website, I'm like, make me a Paul Tudor Jones,
Yeah, a developer would easily do it.
and it would
Like
do it
not
in probably
anybody.
like 4 minutes because it just be, it doesn't even care. It's nuts. And so also they'll be like, okay, and then if I don't publicize that, like I'm not marketing, I'm not going publicly saying I'm Paul Tudor Jones or I'm some whoever. I shouldn't be using people's names, but I'm whoever I am. But rather, I just have it on my computer next to my trading screen,
Yeah.
and I can pick three traders that I like, create three of each of these people, my three favorite traders, and
Yep.
I can consult with them before I make trades. And is there any identity or sovereignty or legal, like, is that, if I'm Chris Vecchio, do I have an issue if
I mean, usually from an IP standpoint, as long as you're not commercializing, but like reading a book, for example, doesn't penalize you from anything, right? So this
Mhm.
is a different form of medium. So as long as you're using it from a research standpoint, you can throw all of these people in one lounge and ask a particular opinion about something and get different varied perspectives from each of the AIs. People do that today. Um,
Where they
where
have to consult, they have sort of basically expert consultants on domain or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Right. But down to the individual level, right? It's not like a
No,
domain
they
model.
have these three people, whoever they are.
Yeah, totally.
They're three dream advisors.
Yeah. And when our revenue model, like when we go to the companies, we basically create like AIs of key stakeholders, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And their IP is theirs again, their model is theirs, and we basically create the structure. Speaking of the 400, this is basically a $10,000 per AI model because we basically train it for them. That's a different revenue stream, but I just want to classify that as well.
What's the $10,000? I'm sorry.
So we have a self-service model that anybody can go in and then train their model for $400, right, per year. There is a $10,000 per year model as well, where personal AI trainers or certified trainers, if you will train it for 100% accuracy and then deliver
I
it to
can
the
pay you
key
the big
stakeholders.
money and then I don't have to do anything.
Yep, that's right.
And you just deliver me a Paul Tudor Jones or a
That's
Chris
right.
Vecchio or a Tom Sosnoff or whatever I want.
Or all of them in one. Yep.
And then if there's a thousand Tom Sosnoffs or Dylan Radigans or whatever, you could still create the one authentic Tom Sosnoff that's curated by Tom Sosnoff
That's
as
right.
a differentiated product. Because it's like which one is really Taylor Swift or whatever is a,
Exactly. That curation part is the most important part, Dylan, in this whole thing, right? Because at the end of the day, if I want to control my identity, you want to control your identity. Taylor Swift wants to control her identity. So this is the mechanism to take that control and curate it.
Is there a domain issue that you have where again who's the real person and who's not the person, or does it matter?
There is some effort that is going on in terms of verifying the identity. But right now, since the company is handling like manually, there is a verification like behind the scenes. But for automated system, there is a roadmap item to, verify your identity.
If you created multiple personalities, like let's say you had like, let's say, I hate to use names, it's so much more fun to use them, but you know, board member A and board member B are both brilliant. They're both the most desired advisors in the world, but they refuse to be in the same room together because they hate each other because they did God knows what the history is. They can't even be in the same state.
Sure.
But you want both of them.
Yep.
If you have both of them, would if the AI was trained properly, would they not refuse to work together?
That's a very interesting question. Maybe they will. So one of the concepts we have,
we should put them in a room together and see if they'll stay.
So we have on the platform, the personal AI platform, we have concept of lounges. The simple way to think about it is nothing but a group, but we want to create this sense of a lounge, like people coming together in a room and having a friendly conversation. So you can have like multiple humans in there, but you can also have multiple AIs in there, right? So think of a panel, right? When you put those two.
I get it. Well, I'm thinking. Let me tell you what I want you to. I'm going to give you a metaphor to play with.
Sure.
So a friend of mine years ago wrote a play. That was produced in New York and Los Angeles. It was just a big empty room that was metaphor for the afterlife, and put three personalities inside of it from different eras and times, as if they were sort of just meeting in heaven after they didn't even live. It was Tolstoy, Dickens, and Thomas Jefferson. And he created a script. He created his own. The play was a dialogue between these three individuals derived from the biography of Jefferson, Dickens, and Tolstoy to form their dialogue. And so what we're talking about here with the personal AI and the sort of your lounge is, that on a digital version of that.
It's beautiful, right?
I just wonder I just think it'd be funny to take people that are known social adversaries, or just because from whatever, some town or someplace, and then send them to dinner together and see what happens. Anyway, this is not serious discussion. Let's go to the most important part of this discussion. Do you not rationally think this all must be stopped immediately?
No.
Come on. We can talk forever about the games with the personalities and all the advantages of the expertise and all of the connection to the important North Star people in our lives. And I admire and want and appreciate and respect all of it. But in doing that, you unleash AI Hitler, AI Mussolini.
Okay. In not doing that,
AI Genghis Khan, bro.
Okay, so here's the thing.
Okay.
If you not do it, you will unleash AI Hitler, because you know what? We have already unleashed the Hitlers in how the internet is currently designed.
With the asymmetrical risk and all that jazz, you're saying?
With the asymmetrical risk, but at the same time, like you, Dylan, and many different people are in this issue that we do not see, that every life or every identity of yours is compartmentalized and locked into many different, big platforms. So those platforms are designed to work in favor of engagement. So when you talk about Hitler or when you talk about any other misinformation, the current systems, incentivize,
amplify the. No, I know that the whole
amplify the
concept
misinformation.
it's all
And
closing to the worst possible point.
right. And that shutting down the Hitler, Dylan, is not a question to me because I'm offering a solution to shutting down the Hitlers. Okay. So it's really important to understand what are the architectures of the next generation that needs to happen in the quote unquote internet world. So that way we do not continue on the same path that we've been in the past 10 years in the, with the misinformation or with like aggregating all of the data and nobody has
But
any control.
how does the advantage of AI, the advantage of the speed and complexity and flexibility and elasticity and trainability and dynamism of AI, which has a good bajillion, a limitless number of positive aspects, not at the exact same time automatically provide the same empower the same exact thing in the negative, and that's all well and good, but for the fact that the negative side has the asymmetrical advantage in terms of
This is,
it takes one to burn a billion here.
yeah, this is no different than the asymmetrical advantage that we have experienced during the dot-com era, right?
Agreed. No, I'm not. It's the exact same, but it's just the horsepower is higher.
Yeah, the horsepower is higher, but at the same time, if you see the technological advancements, there is something called a personal computer that people, came through along the way. Well, personal computer feels better. Why? Well, I still want the benefit of the computing. I still want the benefit of the internet, but I still want to control something of mine and then, basically have my ownership of it. So we are now talking about this like digital asset that's sitting on my table, which I know 100% is in my hands. That level of control needs to start happening in the internet world, which does not exist right now.
Mm-hmm.
And AI is the next shift, but we want to offer that level of personal identity and personal AI concept and bring into the digital world. Otherwise, we'll be doing the same thing over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
I do have a hot stop at 9:30.
Okay, we're done. Last 30 seconds. What are you raising money for, and what are you going to do with the money?
I'm raising for the money for the community. One of my core pillars is personal AI is the most people planet in the company. And as we go into the market, I want to get the backers who align with the principles of this company. So one of the core missions about Republic Campaign is to actually get those backers. Yes, we are raising money, but when you have
What's the North Star for the company?
8 billion people having their own personal AI,
Everybody gets an AI. That's the North Star.
which works for them and does not belong in any platform. It belongs to them.
His name is Suman Kanuganti, the company personal.ai. Pleasure to make the acquaintance, sir.
Thank you, Dylan. Fun.
All right. This is Bootstrapping. I'm Dylan Ratigan. Tasty Live after this.
The content of this podcast is created, produced, and provided solely by tastylive Inc.